Imagine it's 1940. The world is on the brink and the air is thick with uncertainty. The days are marked by fear, and every tick of the clock brings new headlines of chaos and destruction. Europe is engulfed in war. Tanks thunder down shattered streets, cities are reduced to rubble, and millions of ordinary people are caught in the crossfire, their lives upended overnight. The continent is a battlefield, and hope seems in short supply. Nearly every country is forced to pick a side, Axis or allies. The world is divided, and neutrality is a luxury few can afford. Alliances are forged and broken, and the fate of nations hangs in the balance. But on the map, Portugal sits quietly on the edge, seemingly untouched by the devastation. It's a small country, almost easy to overlook, but its position is unique. While neighbors fight desperately for survival, Portugal remains officially neutral, a quiet house at the end of a very loud street. Life in Lisbon goes on, almost as if the war is a distant storm. How did they do it? How did this small nation manage to avoid being pulled into the world's deadliest conflict, when so many others could not? Portugal's neutrality wasn't just luck or geography, it was a high-stakes game of strategy, played with nerves of steel and careful calculation. This is a story of diplomacy behind closed doors, economic maneuvering in the shadows, and a leader forced to make impossible choices to keep his country safe. António de Oliveira Salazar, Portugal's enigmatic leader, had to balance the demands of warring giants, knowing that one wrong move could mean disaster for his people and his nation's future. Portugal's survival depended on walking a diplomatic tightrope, where every step was fraught with danger and every decision could tip the balance. Let's dive into the untold story of wartime Portugal, a world of spies lurking in the shadows, secret deals struck in smoke-filled rooms, and strategic resources that everyone wanted but few could control. Sometimes the most powerful move is refusing to play the game at all. Portugal's story is proof that even in the darkest times, there are ways to survive without surrendering your soul. To understand Portugal's neutrality, we need to look at the 1930s. Portugal was not a major power. After years of chaos, Salazar's Estado Novo regime took control. Salazar, a former economics professor, promised stability and order at the cost of democracy. He banned political parties, censored the press, and used secret police to silence dissent. His vision, a peaceful, traditional, deeply Catholic nation, insulated from radical ideologies. Portugal's geography helped. It shared a border only with Spain and faced the Atlantic, giving it some isolation from Europe's turmoil. Its colonies in Africa and Asia were vital for the economy. As war loomed, Portugal was poor, militarily weak, and focused inward. Salazar knew war would destroy everything he'd built. His top priority, keep Portugal out of the fight, no matter what. The country's fate depended on his caution and the nation's unique position. Portugal's neutrality was a deliberate, calculated choice. It was survival, not indifference. When war erupted in 1939, Salazar's real challenge began. Portugal, a small nation on the edge of Europe, suddenly found itself at the crossroads of global conflict. The world was watching, and every decision carried enormous risk. Neutrality didn't mean ignoring the war, it meant constant vigilance. Salazar had to ensure that Portugal's borders were secure, its cities calm, and its people reassured, all while the world around them was in turmoil. Both Axis and allies wanted Portugal's resources, ports, and strategic location. The country's Atlantic harbors were vital for shipping, and its natural resources like tungsten were highly sought after for the war effort. Salazar's task, give just enough to each side to keep them satisfied, but never too much. He walked a fine line, offering cooperation without ever fully committing. With Germany, he maintained diplomatic ties and allowed spies in Lisbon, turning the city into a hub of espionage. Secret agents from every side mingled in the city's smoky cafes, trading information and secrets. With Britain, Portugal's oldest ally, he offered quiet support and information, knowing the Royal Navy controlled the seas. British ships docked in Lisbon, and intelligence flowed discreetly between the two nations. Lisbon became a city where German officers and British diplomats dined in the same restaurants. The city buzzed with rumors, coded messages, and tense encounters as everyone tried to read the other's intentions. Portugal traded with both sides, canned fish to Britain, raw materials to Germany. Every shipment was a calculated risk, balancing economic survival with political danger. Every deal was calculated for survival, not ideology. Salazar's government weighed each agreement carefully, always considering the possible consequences. Salazar played the two sides off each other, always aiming to keep the war away from Portugal's borders. He used diplomacy as a shield, deflecting pressure from both camps. His diplomacy was a high-wire act. One misstep could mean invasion. The threat of occupation by either side was always present, and Salazar knew that a single wrong move could spell disaster for his country. Neutrality was a daily negotiation, not a passive stance. Every morning brought new challenges, new demands, and new dangers to navigate. Salazar's pragmatism kept Portugal afloat in a sea of chaos. While bombs fell elsewhere, Lisbon remained a rare island of calm, a testament to his careful maneuvering. The world's powers watched, but Portugal stayed out, barely. Every headline, every diplomatic cable was a reminder of how close the danger truly was. It was a masterclass in survival, a delicate balancing act that kept Portugal safe while the world was at war. At the heart of Portugal's balancing act was its alliance with Britain, the world's oldest, dating back to 1386. Britain's navy protected Portugal's empire, and Portugal offered a crucial Atlantic foothold. World War II tested this alliance like never before. Churchill wanted Portugal's support, but knew German invasion was a real threat. Instead of pressure, Britain relied on trade and diplomacy. Enter wolfram, tungsten, a metal vital for making weapons. Portugal's mines became a gold mine for both sides. Salazar sold wolfram to Germany and Britain, sparking a bidding war that filled Portugal's treasury. The humble metal became a powerful diplomatic tool. By controlling wolfram sales, Salazar sent political signals and maintained his delicate balance. Portugal's resources gave it unexpected leverage in a world at war. Salazar's biggest concern was next door, Spain. The fate of Portugal, he knew, was closely tied to whatever happened across the border. Every decision he made was shadowed by the uncertainty of Spain's future. After a brutal civil war, Franco's Spain emerged authoritarian, scarred by violence, and with strong ties to Hitler and Mussolini. The world watched as Spain teetered between neutrality and the Axis, its future uncertain. If Spain joined the Axis, Portugal would be trapped and vulnerable, surrounded by hostile forces on all sides. The threat was not just military, but existential. Salazar understood that Portugal's cherished neutrality depended entirely on Spain's stance. If Spain fell, so would Portugal's independence. In 1939, he and Franco signed the Iberian Pact, a treaty of friendship and non-aggression. This was more than a diplomatic gesture. It was a calculated move for survival. Publicly, the pact was about peace and stability. Privately, it was a secret understanding to keep both countries out of the wider war, shielding them from the chaos engulfing Europe. They agreed to consult and coordinate, creating a neutral bloc on the peninsula. This alliance was a quiet but powerful statement of independence. Hitler pressured Franco to join the war, but the pact gave Franco cover to say no. It was a diplomatic shield, allowing Spain to resist Nazi demands. Together, Salazar and Franco made invasion politically costly for Hitler. Their cooperation forced the Axis to reconsider any plans for the peninsula. The Iberian Pact was a diplomatic masterstroke, a subtle but effective maneuver that protected both nations. It secured Portugal's only land border and created an island of peace in a continent at war. For the Portuguese people, this meant safety and stability in a time of global upheaval. Without Spain's neutrality, Portugal's would have been impossible. The two countries' fates were inseparably linked. The alliance between the two dictators, though uneasy, was key to their survival. It was a partnership born of necessity, not trust. Sometimes peace depends on unlikely partnerships, where survival outweighs ideology and pragmatism shapes history. The Battle of the Atlantic was critical. Allied ships faced deadly U-boat attacks. The Allies needed a base in the mid-Atlantic, and Portugal's Azores Islands were perfectly placed. Under neutrality, Salazar couldn't just hand over the islands. Churchill and Roosevelt pleaded for access, invoking the ancient alliance. Salazar stalled, fearing German retaliation. Only when the Allies gained the upper hand did he act. In 1943, Salazar invoked the alliance and leased Azores bases to Britain without declaring war. It was a clever move, helped the Allies stay officially neutral. The British quickly set up an airbase, closing the Atlantic Black Pit. Allied planes from the Azores turned the tide against U-boats. Portugal's quiet contribution was crucial to Allied victory. Sometimes neutrality means knowing when to act. How did Portugal pull it off? It was a mix of shrewd diplomacy, economic leverage, regional alliances, and geography. Salazar's pragmatic leadership kept both Axis and allies at bay. Control over Wolfram made Portugal valuable. Neither side wanted to risk losing access. The Iberian Pact with Spain secured Portugal's only land border. Geography helped. Portugal's Atlantic position and the Azores gave it bargaining power. By selling resources to both sides and stalling for time, Salazar kept the war at arm's length. The Azores deal let Portugal help the Allies at the right moment. Neutrality was never passive, it was a daily, calculated effort. Portugal's survival was no accident. It was the result of careful choices, luck, and relentless negotiation. In a world gone mad, Portugal found a way to stay out. When the war ended, Portugal was unscathed, its cities intact, its gold reserves full. Salazar's policy seemed vindicated. Portugal was stable and prosperous compared to war-torn Europe. But this stability came at a cost. While Europe rebuilt and embraced democracy, Portugal remained under Salazar's authoritarian regime. The neutrality that saved Portugal also isolated it politically. The wealth from wartime trade wasn't shared equally, many remained poor. Social and economic reforms were delayed for decades. The regime poured resources into its colonial empire, leading to costly wars and eventual revolution. Portugal's neutrality was a double-edged sword. It saved lives and preserved independence, but also prolonged dictatorship and stagnation. The peace of the 1940s cast a long shadow. Portugal's path was safe but not free. Was Salazar right to keep Portugal neutral? On the surface, yes. He saved his people from war and destruction, but neutrality meant doing business with Nazi Germany, selling wolfram that fueled their war machine. Portugal's policy required turning a blind eye to Nazi atrocities. Lisbon was a haven for refugees, but official policy was often restrictive. Salazar's goal was stability, not fighting fascism. The success of neutrality strengthened his dictatorship, delaying democracy for decades. Was avoiding war worth 30 years of repression? There's no easy answer. Portugal's story is a case study in historical complexity. Sometimes, survival comes at a moral cost. Salazar chose pragmatic self-preservation over heroism. It saved the country, but at a price. Was it a masterclass in diplomacy or a cold bargain? The answer depends on what you value most: peace or the fight for a greater good.